Silent soldier humiliates. Tech mogul in viral clash. How? A crisp 45-degree morning bathes Buckingham Palace in gold, but the air's about to ignite. Black SUVs screech to a halt, chrome blazing, 20 feet from the palace gates.
Out struts Jeff Carter, 48, tech mogul who rewrites rules before breakfast. His navy suit screams power, his smirk dares the world. "This place needs a reboot," he scoffs, eyeing scarlet-clad guards like they're obsolete code.
The crowd, 30 feet back, buzzes, phones up, sensing chaos. Carter's got 50 million followers and an ego to match. He's here for a viral moment. But 50 feet away, Sergeant Daniel Thompson, 35, stands like granite. A Coldstream guard, forged in Iraq's 110-degree firefights. He's no prop. His rifle steady, eyes locked past Carter's taunts. The billionaire closes in, 5 feet away, phone flashing. "Smile, man. Show my fans you're alive." Thompson doesn't blink. His silence a steel wall. The forecourt crackles, tourists frozen, hearts pounding. Carter's aide panics, 15 feet back, but he pushes harder, mocking the guard's Hollywood stance. Then, Senior Protocol Officer Edward Harris, 62, storms in, voice like a blade. "Step back, sir. This is a soldier, not your stage." Carter bristles, but he's outgunned. The showdown peaks when Thompson speaks. One line, razor sharp. Progress that craves applause is just a show. Carter's jaw drops. The crowd gasps. His empire humbled by a guard's quiet power. How does one soldier silence a titan? Drop where you're watching from, hit subscribe, and stick around. This clash rewrites everything. Picture a crisp London morning, the kind where the air stings your cheeks at 45 degrees Fahrenheit, and sunlight bathes Buckingham Palace in a golden glow. The iconic iron gates stand tall, guarding centuries of history, while tourists huddle along barriers, phones ready, their breath fogging in the chill. A low hum cuts through the quiet. A convoy of black SUVs glides into view, chrome bumpers flashing like mirrors, each vehicle screaming wealth and power. The crowd stirs, whispers buzzing. "Who's that?" a kid asks, eyes wide. "Someone huge," his mom mutters as cameras snap in sync. The lead SUV, its tinted windows hiding secrets, halts 20 feet from the palace's grand entrance. The door swings open, and out steps Jeff Carter, 48, a tech mogul who bends industries like steel. Love him or loathe him, his presence commands attention. He moves with the swagger of a man who's launched rockets and reshaped markets before coffee, his navy suit razor sharp, no tie, because who needs one when you rewrite the rules? His eyes, keen and restless, sweep the forecourt like he's already hacking its layout. "Fascinating," he says, his Silicon Valley drawl slicing the air as he nods at the scarlet-clad guards, rigid as statues. "Very analog. When did this system last get an upgrade?" The British minister beside him, a diplomat who's seen it all, flashes a tight smile. "Some traditions, Mr. Carter, run on code that never crashes." Carter's entourage, aides clutching tablets, security men scanning the crowd, trails him like shadows. Tourists, now recognizing the billionaire, erupt in clicks and murmurs. A boy tugs his dad's sleeve. "Is that the electric car guy?" The father nods, zooming his phone. "Yep, the one who bought that app." Carter strides across the stone courtyard, his footsteps sharp, echoing like a drumbeat in the vast space. He stops, hands on hips, studying the guards with an engineer's curiosity. "Solid hardware," he quips, loud enough for nearby tourists to hear. "But the interface needs a reboot." His aide, a woman gripping her tablet like a shield, leans in. "Sir, we're off script," she hisses. Carter's grin only widens, brushing her off rules. Those are for people who don't disrupt the world. The palace looms, its history heavy, but Carter sees a puzzle to solve, a stage for his next big moment. The crowd's energy shifts, phones locked on him, sensing something brewing. A teenage girl whispers to her friend, "He's gonna do something wild, isn't he?" Her friend nods, filming. Carter's gaze flicks to the guards again, his mind clearly racing. To him, this isn't just a ceremony, it's a system, one he's sure he can optimize. The minister clears his throat, sensing trouble, but Carter's already moving, drawn to the challenge. The forecourt holds its breath, the morning light sharp, the stakes unspoken but electric. Whatever happens next, it's going to be a story no one forgets. Across the sunlit forecourt of Buckingham Palace, where Jeff Carter's bold strides and Silicon Valley swagger had just stirred the crowd, stood Sergeant Daniel Thompson, 35, a Coldstream guard who made statues look restless. Posted at the South Arch, 50 feet from Carter's flashy convoy, he was a vision in scarlet, his tunic pressed sharp enough to slice steel, his bearskin hat angled precisely, his eyes locked on a point beyond the buzzing tourists. Motionless, unyielding, he was the embodiment of discipline, a human anchor in the chaos Carter was brewing. The billionaire's quips about outdated hardware echoed faintly, but Thompson didn't flinch. To him, Carter was just noise. What Carter didn't know, what the gawking crowd couldn't see, was that Thompson wasn't just a ceremonial prop. This was a man who'd stared down hell in Iraq, running convoy protection through dusty IED-laced roads near Fallujah. 2 tours, countless nights under mortar fire, and a 4-hour firefight at a remote outpost where he held his ground while shrapnel flew. His citation for bravery, earned at 28, praised unshakable calm under relentless attack. He'd carried wounded buddies to safety, refusing to budge until the last chopper lifted off. That kind of grit doesn't bend for a billionaire's ego or a viral photo op. As Carter strutted closer, his voice booming about user engagement, Thompson's face betrayed nothing, not a flicker, not a blink. His rifle, gripped at regulation angle, was steady as granite. The crowd, now 30 feet away behind velvet ropes, sensed the tension spiking. A teenage boy whispered, "That guard's not moving, is he?" His mom shook her head, awestruck. "Not a chance." Carter, oblivious, pointed right at Thompson, his grin cocky. "This guy's the real deal, huh? Let's test that British efficiency." The words landed like a challenge, and the air grew thick, electric. Tourists' phones stayed up, but their chatter faded. Something big was coming. Thompson's stillness wasn't just protocol. It was power. Forged in desert heat over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, honed in moments where a single twitch could mean death, his discipline was a fortress. Carter, used to bending CEOs and algorithms to his will, had no idea who he was facing. This wasn't a man playing dress-up. This was a combat vet who'd forgotten more about pressure than Carter could dream. The billionaire's aide, sweating despite the cool 45-degree morning, muttered, "Sir, we should stick to the plan." Carter ignored her, stepping within 10 feet of Thompson, his phone now out. ready to capture his triumph. "One smile," he called, voice taunting. "Show me you're human." The crowd held its breath, phones trembling in their hands. A little girl, clutching a tiny American flag, tugged her dad's sleeve. "Why's that man bothering him?" she asked. Her dad, voice low, said, "Some folks think they own the world." Thompson's eyes never wavered, his gaze slicing through Carter like he wasn't even there. The palace's ancient stones seemed to pulse with the weight of the moment. Carter's smirk twitched, a crack in his armor. He was used to winning, but Thompson wasn't playing his game. The guard's silence was a wall, and Carter was about to crash right into it. The Buckingham Palace forecourt crackled with tension, Jeff Carter's brash voice slicing through the crisp 45-degree Fahrenheit air as he stood just 8 feet from Sergeant Daniel Thompson. The Coldstream Guard, a 35-year-old Iraq vet carved from discipline, hadn't budged an inch, his scarlet tunic flawless, his eyes fixed on some distant point beyond the billionaire's theatrics. Carter, 48, oozed Silicon Valley confidence, his navy suit sharp, his phone raised like a weapon. "Come on, man," he taunted, his words dripping with challenge. "One smile for my 50 million followers. Show the world you're not a robot." The crowd, 30 feet back behind velvet ropes, froze, their phones still up but their breaths held tight. This wasn't a stunt anymore. It was a showdown. Thompson's face was a mask of steel, not a flicker of response to Carter's bait. The billionaire stepped closer, now 6 feet away, crossing an invisible line every tourist knew to respect. "This is brand loyalty," Carter grinned, mocking Thompson's rigid stance. "Who built this? Hollywood?" A nervous chuckle rippled through his entourage, but it died fast. The crowd's mood shifted, amusement souring to unease. A mom, gripping her son's hand, whispered, "He's pushing too far." Her boy, wide-eyed, nodded. Carter, undeterred, mimicked Thompson's posture, stiff and exaggerated, his phone flashing as he snapped a selfie. "This'll go viral," he crowed. "British stoicism meets tech disruption." But Thompson was no prop. Forged in Iraq's 110-degree heat, where a single flinch could have cost lives, he'd held defensive lines under gunfire. Carter's antics were nothing compared to mortar rounds. His rifle, angled precisely, didn't waver. His silence screamed louder than Carter's boasts. The billionaire's smirk faltered, a shadow of doubt creeping in. He wasn't used to being ignored. "What's the deal?" he pressed, voice sharper now. "You too proud for a little engagement." "My platform's worth billions." The crowd's phones dipped slightly, their faces hardening. A retiree in a Vietnam vet cap muttered, "Kid, you're out of your league." The air grew heavier, the palace's ancient stones seeming to lean in, watching. Carter's aide, sweating bullets, hissed, "Sir, we're drawing heat." A palace security officer, 20 feet away, shifted, unsure whether to step in. "Stopping a tech titan in front of 50 cameras? That's a career ender. Mr. Carter," a British liaison called, her voice calm but firm. "Please return to the marked path." Carter didn't glance back, waving her off. "Just chatting with the talent," he shot back, but his cool was cracking. Thompson's stillness wasn't just discipline, it was defiance, a wall no algorithm could breach. A teenage girl near the ropes whispered, "He's not gonna break, is he?" Her friend shook her head. Filming stopped. The crowd sensed it now. This was no game. Carter leaned in, now 5 feet away, his voice dropping low, personal. "One nod, buddy. Show me you get progress." Thompson's eyes didn't flicker, his silence a blade cutting through Carter's ego. The billionaire's hand twitched, his phone lowering slightly. For the first time, he looked small, outmatched by a man who didn't need to speak to win. The forecourt held its breath, the clash of worlds teetering on a razor's edge, and everyone knew something was about to give. The Buckingham Palace forecourt was a pressure cooker, Jeff Carter's taunts ringing out as he stood 5 feet from Sergeant Daniel Thompson, whose unyielding silence cut deeper than any comeback. The 35-year-old Coldstream Guard, his scarlet tunic razor-sharp, hadn't flinched, his rifle steady, eyes piercing the horizon. Carter, 48, his phone still raised, was losing his cool, his Silicon Valley smirk fading under the weight of Thompson's defiance. The crowd, 30 feet back, gripped their phones, but their faces showed shock, not amusement. A kid whispered, "He's not budging." The air, crisp at 45 degrees Fahrenheit, felt like it could snap. Then, a new sound. Crisp footsteps on ancient stone sliced through the tension. Enter Senior Protocol Officer Edward Harris, 62, emerging from a palace side door 50 feet away, his black overcoat immaculate, his silver hair catching the morning light. He moved with the calm urgency of a man who'd tamed diplomatic storms for decades, his presence like a thundercloud rolling in. The crowd parted instinctively, sensing authority. Harris, the gold standard of quiet power, had wrangled world leaders and diffused crises without breaking a sweat. Now his steel-gray eyes locked on Carter, who was still jabbing at Thompson. "One smile, man," Carter snapped, oblivious to the shift. His aide, 15 feet behind, looked ready to bolt, her tablet shaking. "Mr. Carter," Harris said, his voice low, polished, but hard as granite, stopping 10 feet from the billionaire. The words carried across the forecourt, freezing everyone. Carter turned, caught off guard, his phone dipping. "Just admiring the setup, pal," he said, forcing a grin. "Real immersive vibe." "Ever thought about a selfie zone?" Harris didn't blink, his face a masterclass in control. "Sir," he said, each syllable a warning. "The Coldstream Guards aren't performers, they're active-duty soldiers. You're 5 feet from a military post, violating protocol." The crowd gasped softly, phones lowering. A vet in the back muttered, "That's a mic drop." Carter's grin twitched, his ego stung. "I've dined with presidents," he shot back, stepping closer to Harris, now 8 feet apart. "Talked Mars with NASA. I can handle a chat with a guy in a fancy hat." Harris met his gaze, unflinching, his voice steady as a blade. "And yet, sir, none of them needed a second reminder about boundaries, boom." The crowd went dead silent, the slap of British precision landing like a knockout punch. A teenage girl whispered, "He's done for." Her dad nodded, awestruck. Carter's aide, now 20 feet away, checked her watch, panic in her eyes as the scene teetered on viral disaster. Thompson, still motionless, was a rock in the storm, his silence amplifying Harris's words. The palace loomed, its history a silent judge. Carter's security team shifted, uneasy, 12 feet behind, sensing the tide turning. Harris stood tall, his authority unchallenged. "This isn't a stage, Mr. Carter," he said, voice calm but ironclad. "It's a duty. Step back." The crowd held its breath, phones forgotten. Carter's hand tightened on his phone, his jaw set, but Harris's stare was relentless, a wall no billions could breach. The forecourt pulsed with raw tension, every eye on the billionaire, the guard and the officer who'd just drawn a line in the sand. One wrong move, and this would explode. The Buckingham Palace forecourt was a tinderbox, the air at 45 degrees Fahrenheit charged with raw tension. Jeff Carter, 48, stood 5 feet from Sergeant Daniel Thompson, his phone limp in his hand, his Silicon Valley bravado crumbling under the 35-year-old Coldstream Guard's unbreakable silence. Thompson, a scarlet-clad fortress forged in Iraq's brutal 110-degree heat, hadn't twitched, his rifle steady, eyes slicing past Carter like he was invisible. Senior Protocol Officer Edward Harris, 62, loomed 10 feet away, his silver hair glinting, his voice, calm but lethal, still echoing from his takedown. None of them needed a second reminder about boundaries. The crowd, 30 feet back behind velvet ropes, was statue still, phones dipping, their gasps swallowed by the weight of the moment. Carter's aide, 20 feet off, clutched her tablet, her face screaming disaster. Carter's jaw tightened, his ego clawing for control. "This is unreal," he muttered, forcing a laugh, his voice thinner now. "I'm offering global reach, and you're playing statue?" He leaned closer, 4 feet from Thompson, desperate to crack the guard's armor. The crowd leaned in, a kid whispering, "He's not gonna win this, is he?" His mom shook her head, eyes locked on Thompson. Harris, unflinching, took a measured step forward, now 8 feet from Carter, his presence a silent warning. The palace's ancient stones seemed to hold their breath, the morning light sharp as a blade. Every second stretched, taut, ready to snap. Then it happened. Thompson moved, not a flinch, not a falter, but a deliberate shift, his grip on his rifle adjusting by a fraction, a military signal as clear as a slammed door.
The crowd froze, hearts pounding. His eyes, still fixed on that distant point, never wavered, but his voice, clear, steady, forged in battles Carter couldn't fathom, cut through the silence like a gunshot.
"Progress that begs for applause isn't progress, sir. It's a show." The words landed like a thunderbolt, reverberating across the forecourt. Carter's mouth opened, then snapped shut, his face paling, caught off guard by the guard's surgical strike. The crowd's collective breath escaped in a rush, a murmur rippling. "Holy crap, he spoke!" Thompson's single line, delivered without breaking his ceremonial stare, wasn't just a rebuke. It was a revelation. It stripped Carter's billions, his followers, his swagger, bare. The billionaire, used to bending the world with a tweet, looked small, exposed. Harris's lips twitched, the faintest hint of approval, but he stayed stone-faced, 8 feet away, letting the moment burn. A teenage girl, 30 feet back, dropped her phone, whispering, "That was epic." Her friend nodded, awestruck. An old man wearing a faded army pin muttered, "That's a soldier." Carter's hand fell to his side, his phone forgotten. His eyes darted to the crowd, now staring at Thompson, not him. Their faces weren't amused or impressed. They were reverent, some with tears brimming. A boy, 10, raised a shaky salute to Thompson, his sister copying him. Others followed, their hands rising, not for Carter's spectacle, but for the guard's quiet power. Thompson didn't acknowledge them. his duty unshaken, but the forecourt pulsed with his victory. Carter's aide whispered, "Sir, we need to go," her voice urgent, 15 feet behind. The billionaire's shoulders sagged, his fight drained. The clash was over, and Thompson, with one sentence, had won without moving a muscle. The crowd knew it, Harris knew it, and Carter, for once, had no comeback. The Buckingham Palace forecourt hung in stunned silence, Jeff Carter's defeat sealed by Sergeant Daniel Thompson's piercing words. The 35-year-old guard, unmoved in his scarlet tunic, stood 5 feet from the billionaire, his rifle steady, eyes fixed beyond the chaos. Carter, 48, his swagger crushed, turned away, his footsteps faint on the stone, trailing his entourage 15 feet behind. Edward Harris, 62, watched, his silver hair glinting, his nod to Carter's aide signaling the end. The crowd, 30 feet back, didn't cheer or jeer. They stood, awestruck, some saluting Thompson, tears in their eyes. A girl whispered, "He owned that guy." Her dad nodded, without raising his voice. Thompson's silence, forged in Iraq's 110-degree hell, had outshone Carter's billions. As Carter vanished through the palace door 50 feet away, the crowd stayed, honoring the guard who didn't bend. Thompson marched off, precise, untouched by the drama, leaving a lesson carved in the air. True strength doesn't demand attention, it commands respect. The tourists dispersed, changed, knowing discipline trumps disruption. Yvette murmured, "That's power." The palace stood quiet, its stones whispering. Some things no money can move.